Welcome to the Simbi Educator Workshop. We've set up this workshop so that you can learn about Simbi, interact with this workshop, and get the most benefit from the Simbi platform so that your students can begin reading for good right away. To get started, we've set it up into 4 distinct sections. Each section will have a video for you to watch and then an assignment for you to do. If you're doing this with a team, feel free to meet after each section to do a question and answer or brainstorming session together. In section 1, we'll discuss impact and motivation. We know that students are motivated to read on the Simbi platform, and the impact of their voice is a very powerful feature. In video 2, we'll give specific step-by-step instructions on how you can get started setting up your groups and creating student accounts. We'll also begin creating our first assignments and looking around the Simbi library. In step 3, you'll learn how to listen and assess your students using reading skills through the platform. You'll be able to give feedback to them and engage with the students in a personal way. In step 4, this is a very practical step where you will think about how you can use Simbi in your specific situation. All right, ready to get started? Let's dive in. My name's Janessa, and I'm the head educator here on the team. I'd like to begin this training webinar session by explaining to you why it's important for your readers to be reading on Simbi. First of all, we all know that motivation is key to reading achievement. And we've seen time and time again how Simbi motivates our readers to read for a good cause. Simbi readers can become narrators who make a global impact with their voice. We've seen so many students get excited about this opportunity and improve their global citizenship and connection to the world around them. The way this works is that as students are learning to read, they are developing their reading fluency and comprehension skills on the Simbi platform using our Read Along approach, which is a bimodal approach where you can listen and read at the same time. Then students can become narrators who record their voices and share them on the platform with other readers. Educators can listen into student narrations and track reading progress with our automatic fluency data here. They can interact with students by leaving feedback for them on the platform and connect with them in a personal way to improve reading skills and especially comprehension abilities. Then student narrations can be added to the global library and they can in turn become a reading leader. We're so excited about you joining our Simbi team, and please stay tuned for the next session in our training webinar to learn more about how you can get the most benefit from the Simbi platform. Okay, it's our favorite part, time to check it out for ourselves. So take out your device or computer and log into simbi.io. The great thing is that even if you haven't created a Simbi account yet, you can still access the library and read along and narrate to books. So let's do that now. It's always a good idea to familiarize yourself with a new product before introducing it to your students. So go ahead and read some books now. After you're done that, you can check out the video about Simbi Foundation to learn more about the nonprofit side of Simbi. Then you can read some research around bimodal learning. And when you're done with that, write down a few of your thoughts. What was your experience like reading along and narrating? What did you learn during this session? Maybe discuss this with your team. In this next section, we'll talk about step-by-step instructions of how to get started using Simbi. So we'll be creating our groups, adding student accounts, and then creating our first assignment. Let's get started. To begin with, you'll want to enter your school email. So enter that there. Then enter a username. It has to be a unique username that nobody else has. And then enter the password that you wish to use. And click sign up. Now you want to select Educator and choose the name that your students should call you. The next thing you'll want to do is add your school. So you could type in the name of your school and then select it from the drop down there. If you don't teach at a school, you can always select I don't teach at a school. I teach online, so I'll select this option. Now you have two choices. You could either learn more about Simbi through a demo video, or you can go straight to the dashboard and start navigating it yourself. So let's do that. I'll close this notice here, although this tells me that there are office hours every week for me to attend. And if you have questions about Simbi, I definitely recommend that you attend one of these with myself or my colleague, Arian. So now I see that I'm in my dashboard and I'm all ready to get set up. So the first thing I want to do is use the sidebar to go to groups. I want to start by understanding how groups work. So definitely recommend that you watch this video about how to use groups. I'm going to start by adding a group. So I'm going to say create a group. Now, the way I like to use groups is to organize my class into leveled groups or groups based on interests. So this helps me when I'm creating assignments because I can create one assignment for an entire group instead of thinking about individual students and creating individual assignments for them. So keep in mind that whatever you label your groups is what your students will see. So definitely don't want to be labeling these as high, medium, low, or anything like that. I'm partial to animals, but we all have our own way. So once you've created your group, you can then add students into that group. And you do this with the Add Students button on the upper right. If your students do not have Simbi accounts yet, you will use the I'll create accounts for my students button. So to do this, you enter a student's name, you enter their school email, their parents' email, and their grade level. I always use their reading grade level. So even if they're a grade 3 student, but they're reading at a grade 1, I would select grade 1 because Simbi will suggest books to them based on the grade level that you input here. The email is important if you have Google or Microsoft email addresses that students will use for single sign-on. That makes it easier for them to sign on instead of using their username and password. They will also receive notifications about when you send them assignments and leave feedback for them through the platform. The parents' email means that they will receive the weekly progress report, which will show them how many minutes the students have been reading along and narrating on Simbi, and will also show them learners around the world who have been reading along with them. So this is highly motivating and a way for parents to be interacting with Simbi. We don't send spam to this parent through this email, so this is purely a one email a week kind of situation. Now, once you have inputted that information for your first student, you can add more students here or save your student information. Simbi will automatically generate a username and password for your students, which you will be able to edit later if you wish. However, please download this spreadsheet so that you have this as a backup resource for your own reference. Now you're ready to set up the rest of your group. If you want to edit your student usernames and passwords, you can do so with this edit button here. You can adjust their grade level, change their username, email, password, all of that. You can also set a group goal for your students. This is kind of a fun way for them to be working together to reach a specific goal. So think about something that might be manageable for your group. So between now and February 6th, perhaps as a group, we'll try to get 25 books read. So as we make progress, it will be highlighted on this bar and all the students will be able to see this. And I can remind them as we go through. So if I want to add students to another group now, let's go back to our groups and start another group. Again, we'll add a group. We're going to create a group. Now this is the unicorns. And there we go. Now I'll add a student to this group as well. But let's say that I want to change a student from one group to the other. I might want to use this I'll add students from an existing list. sometimes what happens is when you create your leveled groups, a student will be making progress and you'll need to move them to a new group. In that case, you'd use this button. So in this case, you choose a student from a group, which is the one I just created, Tanya, and I'll save for that. And now she's been moved to this group. However, she still is in the other group. So if I want to remove her from the other group, we'll go back into the Turtles group, and we can easily remove her here with this red button. Removing her from this group does not delete her account. Even if I deleted her from all of my groups, she would still have a Simbi account. I wouldn't be able to access it unless I logged in as that student or rejoined her. So in this case, you could add students and send them a join link. Perhaps your students have already had Simbi accounts, maybe at home or with another teacher. In this case, you'd want to send them this join link so that they could join your group, because you're not currently the owner of their account, but you want them to still be able to use their individual Simbi account. So in this case, you copy the link, send it to them, and then you can be added there too. If I want to add myself to the group, it would look like this. This is the link that your students would get to join. They would click join. And then they would be added to the group as well. So this is how you want to set up your groups to get started first. Set up each of your groups and make sure that you have the correct students in your groups. Now, the next thing you want to do once your groups are set up is go into the library and start looking around at the books. It's a great idea to read some of the books yourselves before assigning them to your students. I like to do about 3 assignments per week for my students so that I know that they are reading books that are just right for them and also are a mix of read along and narrate. So let's go in and see how this works. If I were to select the Greta Thunberg book, for instance, I have 2 options. I can read along or I can narrate. When you read along, it means that you are selecting a narrator to read with first. And this narrator will read, and you can watch the words be highlighted on the screen. So as students are reading and listening at the same time, this bimodal effect is really important for improving their fluency. And we found that students are improving their fluency about 3 times faster than they normally would if they weren't doing this reading while listening. Also, this read along approach is an excellent way to begin reading. So if students are reading books that are more challenging, they can begin with a read along and then do a narrate. And this is a great way for them to improve in their reading confidence, especially for students who are working on pronunciation or maybe learning English for the first time. Doing the read along will help enforce these pronunciation skills and help them learn new vocabulary words as well. So a student would go and read along through the entire book using the next page button here. If they wanted to do a narrate, that means that their voice would be recorded as they're reading. And potentially they could be added as a narrator in the Simbi library. Simbi chooses the top 30% of the students to select a narrator for each book. So after a student narrates, their voice can be submitted after it is approved, and then they can become a narrator listed on the Simbi Global Library as well. But for you, your students can narrate by pressing the microphone button. They speak into the computer or device they're using, and when they finish the page, they press the pause button again. They can listen to their own narration with the play button here. And if they want to re-record, they just press the trash button to delete this recording and re-record. So they're recording on a page-by-page basis. And after each page, their recording is uploaded and they can move to the next page. So let's go back and see if we can create an assignment for our group based on this book. If I click Create Assignment here, I have a few options. I can select Read Along or Narrate. This time I'll choose Narrate because I want to listen to my students reading. I can watch this little video pop up about TellMe and explain what it is. But basically, a TellMe is a little microphone that pops up after a student has read so that they can talk about the book to you and capture their thoughts right after they read. So I like to attach this to all of my assignments because I always want the students to be focusing on the deeper meaning of the text. Going to the next page, you could type in specific assignment directions or TellMe directions for them. The TellMe directions will pop up right before they get that TellMe microphone after reading. Now I can select either groups or specific users or a combination of both. I can save it and assign it, or I can save it for later. It's homework time. Take out your computer or device again and log into Simbi.io. Go to the top right and click on Get Started. Then you can create your new Educator account. If you already have an account, log into your Educator account. The next step will be to add students. You're going to create your group and add students just as I showed you in the previous video. After that, go to the library and assign a read-along book and a narrate book for your group. In video 3, we're going to talk about listening to and assessing our students using the Simbi platform. In this session, we'll talk about listening to our students and assessing their reading skills. So to begin with, go to your group here and check in on a specific student. Today, I'm going to be looking at Sophie. To go into our activity, you go into the orange activity icon on the right-hand side. Now, when you first see their activity page, you'll be able to view all of the books that they have read along to and narrated recently. And here's what these icons mean. This ear icon means that the student has a recorded narration there for you to listen to. The green icon means they've completed an assignment. And the pink icon means that they have a TellMe recorded after reading. Remember, the TellMe is the comprehension piece where they talk about the book after they read. So let's go in and check on one of these students. I'll check in on this book that she read, Greta Thunberg. This is one of the new Impact series in the library. So she narrated this book about a day ago. I can click in, and the first thing that I'll see is this automatic running record. With this running record, I can prioritize my instruction to quickly check if the student had difficulty with the passage or not. If you don't wish to see this in the future, you can always hide it by clicking on the box in the upper right. Do not show this again. Now I can go in and first listen to my student read with this play button.
When Swedish-born Greta Thunberg first learned about climate change,
After listening to my student, I have an option on every page to leave them feedback. I like this option because it helps me speak to my students in a more personal way, just like I would if I was sitting there right beside them. So when I click on this microphone button, I'm able to just speak to them about things that I notice in their reading. I point out specific words, perhaps, that they had difficulty with and give them helpful hints to attack those words differently. Sometimes I give them encouragement about things I notice them doing really well, but I try to make this very specific feedback here on each page. When a student receives this feedback, they'll be able to go and check it in their notification bell, and then they'll be directed right back to their reading so they can actually listen to their reading again and understand what I was referring to. The button in the bottom right here is their TellMe. When I click this, I can hear what they said about the book after reading. This is just like I would do if I was reading with my student one-on-one. They would tell me about what they read, and then I would talk to them about what I thought. I would see if they missed anything or if there is additional connections that I made to the book. So with the response to a TellMe, you can do this here as well. You can speak to your students about what you noticed them doing really well. You can tell them about how they're retelling, how they did with their retelling, and anything that you noticed. And you can even ask them follow-up questions that they can respond to you again. So you can have this back and forth conversation just like you would if you were with them right beside them. Now, after reading and listening to this student, you can go to another student that you have using the drop down in the upper left. I try to listen to my students reading about 1 to 2 times per week and give them feedback because it's really motivating for them and encouraging for them to know that I'm listening to them and helps guide their reading progress. But about once a month, I do a more formal reading assessment called the Reading Competency Assessment. This assessment was developed by literacy expert Adrian Gear and is based on basic reading skills that every reader should be working towards. So using this form, you can complete and create a beautiful and shareable PDF. The way it works is you enter in the student's information. You can enter parent email if you want to include parents in this. And then you're going to be speaking about specific reading skills. So for example, pace, I would think about this passage I just listened to about Greta Thunberg, and I would think about how Sophie read it. Does it require attention? Is she working on it? Or is there consistent evidence? Well, she's consistently using good pace. This is something she's been working on. So I'm going to check the one that is appropriate for her. Okay, she's working at a consistent, smooth pace. For the next one, I'll talk about phrasing, and then I'll speak about punctuation, then intonation, self-correcting, sound out strategies, and TellMe skills. So what I do here is I will talk about all of the general things that I've noticed about their reading at the end and include anything that I'm specifically teaching them recently. Then when you click submit, you'll see a beautiful emailed PDF come to you in your mailbox, and the parents will receive this as well. So again, I do this RCA about once a month to keep track of my students' reading progress and communicate with parents about how the student is doing in their reading. If you want to go on and view other books that the student has done, you can go do so using this icon at the top and view their other narrations if they have other narrations available at the time. All right, all the best as you listen in and check in and communicate with your students. Remember that reading is a social activity, and interacting with students through the Simbi platform is important for their motivation and reading growth. Let's do something now. Go back into your account and let's check out the assignment that you did there. Using the assignment tab on the left, you can click assignments and then go to your assign to me section. Find that assignment that you assigned to yourself in the group and do the narrate assignment. Doing the assignments yourself will make you familiar with what your students go through when you assign things to them. Then, once you've done the assignment, go back into the group and listen in to your own narration. Pretend that you're listening to your student, of course. Also listen to the TellMe. After that, you want to respond to yourself. So give feedback and practice this so that when you're leaving feedback for your students, you'll already be familiar with how this works. Using the little microphone on every page, you can leave specific feedback for your students. They can also respond back to you. You can also respond then to their TellMe afterwards. After listening to your TellMe, click respond to a TellMe and have this back and forth conversation with your students, which is, in this case, really yourself. You've learned a lot in this workshop already. If you're anything like me, you're wondering how it will work for you. So we've added this step so that you can come up with a plan because, who doesn't love a good plan? Here's where we get really practical and think about how you are going to use Simbi in your teaching situation. Whether you're a virtual teacher or in a physical classroom, or maybe a mixture of both, Simbi can meet your needs and help improve your students' motivation to read and achieve reading success. So let's think carefully about how you're going to use Simbi in your situation. Where will your students be reading? Where can they get a quiet place to do their narrations? Would it make sense for you to rotate them through a station or set up a quiet area in your classroom? Or if you're virtual, how are your students going to be narrating at home? Do they have a quiet space for them to read? Here's a few ideas to get you started. You could set up a reading station where students rotate through in groups while the other students are working on other literacy activities in other stations or doing a read along with their headphones. Maybe you're assigning your homework for Simbi for the students to do at home. In that case, they can narrate quietly in the comfort of their own home and you can listen to them later. Maybe you want to use Simbi for benchmarking your students. Take advantage of Simbi's fluency passages and assign those to students a few times a year to check in on where they are in their reading progress to level them. You could use Simbi for buddy reading. Maybe have each student narrate a page as they go through. This can be a really fun and encouraging experience for students as well. You can use it for Daily 5 or for cafe reading. Also for shared reading. When you're teaching virtually, students still like to be read too. You can share your screen and share a Simbi story that way. Or in a physical classroom, just project the story onto the screen. For guided reading, we have lots of lesson plans and activities that will be popped up in the library when you select a book. Take advantage of these to use in your guided reading groups to facilitate discussions about the books. Finally, you can always use Simbi stories as silent reading activities. Just go to Read Along and don't press play as you go through the book. However you choose to use Simbi, we hope that it encourages your students to read more often and become motivated readers on the platform. For the last step here, let's answer the following questions and think carefully about our plan going forward with Simbi. How will you be using Simbi with your students? Having a clear guideline to follow will be very helpful for you. We hope that this educator workshop was helpful to you as well. And thank you so much for attending. If at any time you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to one of us with the little chat icon that you can find on every page of the platform. Happy reading and all the best as you use Simbi with your students to read for good.